Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel.
Now if you've been following the series, Genius here has fitted as good as spanking brand new engine in there, except for the rust.
Yep.
So today we thought let's throw the old inheritance out.
Okay.
And wazz on some new suspension.
Yes, so we've got a full shock upgrade for this, so we're going to be reusing the springs on the back.
Yeah, they look immaculate.
But they are so clean. So it's all new shocks on all corners for Mickey Boy.
And we are going to visit a real man, aren't we?
We are, who's got a tool.
Yeah, he's got a big tool. Because we are shit scared of the springs on the back, and we haven't got a
compressor,
spring compressor. Theoretically, we could buy one from Banggood or one of those cheap nasty things, but I think I would rather donate 20 euros to a real man to do it, and we just watch, and then we're completely...
Yes.
I mean, you see it on YouTube, them firing these things all over the place. No, we don't fancy that. So occasionally it's in everyone's interest to use a real man.
It is. So it's on the rears of the springs, the fronts are just the shocks. So let's...
And before we start, what, when we were looking this up, did they say about this job?
Oh, they say it's an absolute nightmare. This is the rears. The fronts are fine. The rears are an absolute nightmare. If you look them up on YouTube, the #1 video is titled Quick Tip, It's a Nightmare. So should we crack on and see
with our nightmare?
The bottom bolt, these are much easier. We're just changing the shock because of course the front is torsion bar suspension. Dad, stop it. Honestly, this man, he's like us about 6. So the bottom bolt is a 21mm, which you're going to use a socket, and the top is a 16mm. Good wrist action. Take the nut off. Nice. Right, so on the top of these, there's small little bushings. Now, I'm just going to keep these in the correct order so we can put the new ones on nicely. So we've got a little metal sleeve over the top, which goes inside this big bushing like that. And then I'm going to just work this bottom bolt. See how tight this bugger is. Oh, it's going to need a pry bar. Let's get this bugger off. That is so tight. There we are. The shock is out. So on the top of the shock, you can see we've got the metal. We've obviously got the plastic cover that goes over the shock that moves up and down. We've got the metal washer here and the rubber bushing. That goes directly to the metal of the car, up the top there. And then once we're on the top, I'll show you what we've got to put on. Right. I'm just going to get the shock tightened a bit. You make a little sandwich, and this goes in the centre of the hole to line it up properly. And then this little spacer goes up in there to also slot through the hole. So our little sandwich is going to go over the top here. We're 17mm, so we're going to get this little devil in. Get it up. Got it?
Yep. Size 7 bit's irrelevant because it depends on the shocks you got, I suppose, isn't it?
But bad angle. Right, well that's not going to work. So, 30mm I know isn't much.
That's it. And just repeat the other side.
Okay, so fender liner's come out. You can see that it's just a couple of bolts up here that hold it on and just a bit of prying to get that out, quite simple. And you can see why it's a nightmare of a job, because this is actually the body of the car.
And fuel tank.
And fuel tank pipes. Now this is the driver's side, left-hand drive car. So the fuel tank is right here and the pipe runs directly behind this little bracket which the suspension is bolted to. Now the gap between there is just about a finger, so we're going to have to use a ratchet spanner for this because you definitely want to get a socket in there. And one other thing I've seen is people seem to have massive problems with these because they're now known to rust, but which we have found, which could be our saving grace today, is, hang on, there we are, that right there, we've got a cover for the bolts. Now that could have stopped the rust. I genuinely can't even see them, but we'll get in there and hopefully we'll get them off easier.
A quick question for you.
What's that?
Is if we put that back, would you not fill that with grease?
No, because it'll fall off.
I tell a lie.
I've undone them all just in case you wonder.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, so I could look manly and do it?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, as everyone's worked out, I do like working from the rear.
Are you pulling that towards you? Then
Yeah.
you're tightening it.
Oh. Cocky bastard.
Got it. Right then, so next we've moved in slightly more round to the rear, and we're going to take off the rear sway bar link there, and we're also going to take off this arm here, which is there. So these two bolts have got to come off.
I'll do it all, shall I?
And you just lift that up.
Oh, yeah. Ah, so that is a washery bit.
Yep. And then
These are bushings.
there's a middle sort of bar that holds the sway bar up,
Oh, these are
which is there, and that sits on there, a bit rusty.
very rusty.
Yeah. I'm going to move into this bolt here. So this is a size 22 mil. There we are. That wasn't that bad. Okay, now that's off. So at this moment in time, it's probably a good idea just to get a jack underneath the wheel. We're going to pop one under just in case we need to apply some pressure at any time. Right, so what we've got here is we've got ourselves a sacrificial nut, as we're going to call it, to put on the top, so I can just tap that with the hammer to get it to come out, because these are quite stubborn. There we go. So on the other side there's a small servo here, like a little motor, and it's got a tiny little arm. It looks a bit like the sway bar arm, and that comes down and bolts to this arm on the other side. So here you can see this is the little servo box which is attached to the arm, and there's just one little 10mm screw that holds that in place. You just need to disconnect that so that you can lower this arm. Right. Now, this one is a bit of a pain because there's such small access around this side, which there's a little kink in the metal, and getting a ratchet spanner isn't possible. It has to be this one's thin, and the ratchet's too thick, so it's just a very long process of undoing it turn by a tenth of a turn by turn.
Nice.
So after the little kink in the metal's passed, you can get the ratchet on.
And if this pops up, the whole thing will spin inside. So the bottom's got a whatever that is.
Is it an 8mm or 7mm?
It is a 7mm. So you need to grip it at the bottom there.
But luckily, at this moment in time, it hasn't popped, so I've got full access to that. Right, there we are.
Nice.
That, he's out. There we go. Perfect. Yes, of course. Right, so just a little touch, and that is now the weight is on our jack. So, of course, at this time, we're going to waz the bottom nut off of the shock, and then hopefully we can pry this down a bit and get some wiggling room to get that out. Okay, so underneath is just an 18mm bolt, so we're going to take that off with the impact. Okay, so now with everything loose, we should be able to lower the jack down a bit. I just pull this down, and hopefully Dad can wiggle the shock out, and we'll just have to see how that goes.
Yep.
So if I can bring this down a bit, you see we're instantly gaining travel on that shock. Now if I just go down a bit more, so if I can just give that a little...
Nearly. Right, I'm up as far as I can go there.
Okay, hang on.
So I need another couple of millimetres. Hey.
Right, there we are.
Right. He's light.
Yep.
Hey.
All right with that?
Yes.
Perfect. Just reconnected the top one and the bottom joint here, just so obviously we can leave it whilst we go and get those springs put onto the new shocks.
Does that need anything on?
No, with the jack underneath we're fine. But other than that, the spring is out. You can see there's a massive hole here. So give me a fist bump there, you did well. Nicely done.
Oh, there's a little smidgen of rust there.
Yeah,
I'll be at that.
Dan's job now is to treat the rust. We're going to head down to the shop a bit later and get those springs put on the new shocks.
And we've had pie.
Once we've had pie for lunch. So it's been about, 2 weeks since we've started this job. The poor old Mickey's been sat there for ages. And here is our dilemma, which we thought we'd lay out and show you. In fact, Father thought he'd lay it out and show you. He's presented it beautifully, may I say. So here's the old shock and spring off the back, big heavy bugger. And we bought these nice new shocks and we thought we'd just reuse the springs, as you saw in the video. So we took this, we got the tool, in fact, off of our local mechanic who said, oh yeah, that'll waz off, no issue, just take the tool. So we said, fine, we'll do it, we'll give it a crack ourselves. So we tried it a bit here and everywhere, and we weren't confident in our ability of doing it because these just seemed so tough and so tightly compacted together that we couldn't do it. So we decided that we'd take the tool to the man who gave us the tool and get him to do it for us. You can see this spring is currently not actually on the shock. The shock and spring are separate. Now this is because the mechanic man decided to try and take it off. He took it off and it came off. So
it didn't come off.
It did. It came off.
It exploded.
No, it came off perfectly fine.
Oh, you're right. It did.
It came off perfectly fine, but it came off at it being compressed because the tool he had gripped it just on one side like this. So it was turning into a banana. So anyway, he got it off and then went to put the new shock in, and of course it wouldn't go in because the spring was shaped like a banana. And then he tried tightening it up.
Catching on,
yeah,
sort of 3 down. Wasn't
yes,
it?
this because this is straight and that was bent, so it wouldn't go in. So he tightened it a bit more, and then it exploded.
Him and his mate,
yeah, they're trying to pry bar it in, scratching up our nice shock here, and then it ended up just exploding, didn't it?
And did how?
Yeah, well, all 5 of us got hit with stuff. There were me, my dad, and 3 of them trying to do it, and we all got hit. You got hit with a socket. I got the spring in the shin. Luckily not the full brunt of it, but the bloke stood over it, took most of the impact.
Well, the other guy who was stood right over holding it, he got nothing.
No, apparently he got nothing, no. But so anyway, they're off, and then we went around multiple different mechanics who had... We went to Mercedes, a Mercedes specialist.
They told us to go to a Mercedes specialist.
Yes.
Then we went to the big tyre place.
A couple of backstreet ones, and no one will go near these.
And everyone said the same thing.
They're too big.
They're too big, and they're too tightly compact to get their
tools in. Yeah, so we've had to write off just the shock idea, and we've had to order a new set of springs and shocks. So I think
it took another hitting.
It did. So I think we'll have to unbox those and get them out. And I'll tell you, they're not light.
They're not. So these are quite sexy little devils. So if you compare it to, I'm sure these are heavier, or I'm just getting weaker.
Okay, so our new shock, of course, other than being nice, lovely and clean, has a nice boot on it to cover the bottom of the spring here, and the spring actually looks a little bit taller. That's probably of years of compression on the original one.
I think so. Yeah.
But other than that, they're identical, but a lovely piece of kit. I'm excited to get these on because obviously they're nice and clean. So they've just got a little protector. Let's move the old one out of the way and bring the cat in. And you can see they've just got a little protector on that bottom.
Meowing.
Yeah. Just a little cover there that comes off, and that's ready to go in. So what we'll do is we will try and remember how we took these off 2 weeks ago.
It does. 2 weeks, it must be.
And we're going to try and get them on. So let's crack on.
Okay.
Hey, Reg. Oh, hang on. And also, let's not forget to mention we got new sway bar drop links as well, because the other ones were perished and cracked. So we've got a nice set of those as well, haven't we, Reggie? On the top, we've just put a little bit of grease. That's just where the metal on metal contact is. So we'll just take that bottom bolt off, which we're going to be using. And then what we're going to do is put this in, and the way it goes, you can see there's a 3 stud pattern on there.
Shut up.
It's the singular that sticks out here, which actually faces outwards. So it goes in that orientation, just like that, in. So what we'll do is I'll try and get this in, because obviously I'm a little bit more manly, not much, but a little bit more manly, and you can try and just give that a little pull down every now and again to give me a little bit more space.
That's it. Yes.
Right.
Joy.
1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, cool. Nicely done. Right, let's get this bugger.
I was a bit concerned about the threads getting a bit knackered there, but not a lot you can do, is there?
No. There we go. Got it.
What did you do?
So I used it as it was wedged in place.
Yes.
I decided to just pull it until that joint moved, and then it moved. Now the top's not quite in line, but we can jack that up and get it in.
Ah, nicely done.
So I'm going to...
Right, where would you like me, without being too rude?
This bugger here. So we're going to have to go, there we go, up a bit and get that top one in. Ooh, too far. There we are. Top one goes in, and once he's in place, then we can try and get this bottom one on. Like that. Bottom one's almost in. There we are. Right, now we can just put a little bit of weight up on it. Go around and put all the bolts on new afterwards, but first we've got to secure this arm and this arm just roughly into position, so the upper and the lower here, and that will then allow us to release the jack and get access to the bottom bolt of the spring. Right, so now we've got these two done, I'm just going to start finger tightening the top bolts of the spring, so then we can lower it down and nothing will move out of place. And these have all just got some medium strength thread locker on them. Right, so on this new one, this came out squeaking, so we decided to just put a bit of lube on the inside, just so in future, if we ever have to replace it, it will just come out a lot easier and smoother. So just get the grease in, and then it's ready to go. So
I think that would be full of grease, wouldn't it, really?
Right, so that just slides on, and then we've got our bottom piece, and we can lower the jack down a bit just to gain a bit of space. And now this just goes up through the bottom of the, so that then sits on. And
you might need to catch a bit of the grease off the top.
You're right, I do. So then that goes in, sway bar on the top. And then we've got our top cap there, which just screws in like so. Do everything finger tight for now. Okay, so I'm going to go down and tighten up the bottom bolt for the spring, which once we've get into the torque settings is 85 Newton meters. And the top ones on the spring are only 20 Newton meters, so not much at all. So all these ones are getting from me is what I call a confidence tighten. So you just feel confident in it, because there's no way of getting a torque wrench on there. But 20 Newton meters isn't massive, which is lucky as the access is appalling. But just go around them a couple of times, checking after you've tightened each one that the other one hasn't come loose, which in my case they haven't. There we are. Oh, loosely. God, oh, this is so tough.
How would you torque that?
You don't. You wouldn't. No, there's no possible way. Right.
So what are you going for? Just
pretty tight. Well, it's not coming off at that. That's for sure. It's more like it, isn't it?
It suddenly got easier.
Yeah. Right, so according to the forums, this one gets down to 130 Newton meters, which seems quite excessive, but it must be because it's one of the main connecting rods. So there we go. And we've just got 30 Newton meters on the sway bar connecting link here. There we go. Perfect.
Oh, that's the first time. Yeah, I was forgetting.
It's going to be high. Job's a good one. Installation actually went quite well.
Bit more of a job than we expected.
Yeah, it certainly was.
Just because our tip would be, if you have got a W163, buy the springs fitted.
Buy the springs fitted, yeah, unless you know 100% that you've got the correct piece of kit or someone who does.
And I feel like I've done something
he's
today.
actually done something today. So well done, Dad,
Thank you.
a well-deserved brew. So
as always,
a latte tall.
Por favor.
One day I'll change all of my wicked ways.